Hey guys, welcome back to the trainer feed. What episode is this today? I can't remember. This is what 15?
18.
18. There we go.
Haven't even made 20. We're already forgetting.
Okay, now.
We have Antoine here today. Our buddy Antoine. Should be a really exciting episode today. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. You know, living the COVID
Living the life.
dream. Working,
I'm ready
trying
for
to make
this.
things happen. Got a couple of workouts in outside. It was hot as hell this past week. So, just trying to make sure that everything's in line and doing the thing. How about you?
David, how you doing?
I hear all my single ladies.
It's fucking
Who's that?
hot, dude.
Oh, that's how I turn it down. Fucking A.
No, it was my living room doesn't have an AC on, so I'm trying to just chill here, and I'm just sweating bullets. It's crazy. Workouts are even worse. I'm working out here, and it's like a puddle of water, which for a lot of people think that's a great workout, but still, all I'm saying is, I slipped a couple of times and I fell on my ass, so that's not good.
Damn,
Wow.
dude.
It's kind of like when we try to do the kettlebell, the Turkish get up in the park,
Oh, yeah.
and my foot slipped. That's what happened. I was fine.
That was grass.
I did get a new kettlebell though.
Oh,
Today.
wait, what did you get?
My client is she's moving back to China to her parents. They live over there,
She's giving it away.
and she texted me. She's like, "Hey, do you want this 65-pound kettlebell?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
24 kilo or 28 kilo?
A little under 28, I think. Because I already have a 28, so I guess this will make kind of a pair. I mean, this is not exact weight, but she gave me that. I went to her place, picked stuff up, and she had so much shit. She was like, just gonna give out, and she's gonna take some stuff, but she gave me like 3 yoga blocks, gave me the kettlebell, and gave me the 2 lacrosse balls that are like taped up. It looks like a peanut.
Yeah.
That was great. So she gave me that. So that was really nice of her.
Nice.
And other than that, my workouts have been solid. Yesterday I took off, but today I'm going to do some stuff right after this and hang it in there.
Nice. Cool. Good stuff. I actually have a 28 kilo that I ordered the other day as well. Like, I remember Angel sent us that,
Can you lift that?
email. What's up?
Can you lift that?
I think when we were working out, I was the one using the 28, no?
Yeah, you were.
I was, right? Was I not? So I ordered a second one so I can do some dual work with that. I was up last night till 2, 8. It was just so rare for me to be up that late, but I was finishing my group fitness
Playing
certification.
Warzone.
No, I wish I was playing Warzone by myself the other day, and I just fucking suck. And I just got like 1 kill, and I was like, yeah, all right. And then I got like killed 4 times. I'm like, all right, I'll come.
Dude, the last couple games, yesterday I played a couple games at night, like with my brother and a buddy of mine. I got pissed the fuck off. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this fucking game. Playing online versus like against other people versus playing like generate computer is such a different, like, this is obviously like well documented, but it's such a different you gotta
game.
get better in multiplayer. You just as like practice.
Well, that's why I figured, like, let me just practice by myself and then join you guys. But order the kettlebell, some other stuff I'll tell you guys off air. There's some really exciting things come our way. And then also I tuned in this morning. I have a client that I train virtually in Canada, and she organizes like a kind of equivalent of Perform Better Summit, and they call it Strive Leadership. And there's some really awesome speakers on there. And they were talking a little bit about like the virtual training world now, how it's, it's a thing. And someone else developing, again, more platforms online as well as virtual training like packages and stuff like that. So it was super interesting. I can share some stuff with you guys if you want, but I don't want to detract too much time away from this and talking about our guest coming on today. I've trained her for 2 or 3 months.
You tell us this now. Is that
The what?
That she hosts things like Perform Better?
Well, yeah, I thought I mentioned it, and I guess I didn't. But
No.
yeah, no, normally, yeah, it's just an equivalent. It's a Canadian equivalent, but it was awesome. The first day
Probably a lot nicer.
So. I'll tell you what, I was engaged. It was awesome, and we're really very, very relatable, very relevant to what's going on right now, right, with the virtual training. So that's what I think was more clutch about it, as opposed to some Perform Betters have been. The one we went to was was awesome, right? But now that, again, things have changed with COVID, it was very good for that reason. But I don't want to distract too much time from that. I know we're going to bring Antoine in as well.
All right, let's do it. Let's get Antoine in.
Let's get him on.
Let's get this fucking guy. Oh, shit.
Shoot.
Oh.
Oh my God, David Bravo. Oh, what's with that beard, man?
What the hell is on your head, bro?
Oh my God. Look at Jacques with the blonde hair.
Yeah, we
Oh
got
my
little changes here. Angel's got the fade as well. You can't see
Yeah,
that.
Angel's hair's growing.
Yeah, I'm letting it
Angel's
grow
hair's
on the
growing.
top. Yep.
I like it.
How
you doing?
You know, living the dream, man.
I
I live in the
quarantine
fucking
dream.
Yeah, I'm in Amagansett at my client's house. I've been there
Oh, nice.
like
In
10
where?
days. It's near Montauk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you staying in the city like after that, or did you go up to Wisconsin?
Man, we couldn't go to Wisconsin because Christine's dad is, he's 70, and he recently had like some really bad upper respiratory issues. So we've been home mostly. But this month though, we went to Rhode Island. Now we're here, and then we're going to Aspen for 10 days.
Oh wow,
Nice.
good.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you been training? Have you been working?
I've been working. Yeah, I've been working here and there. I mean, obviously not at the same volume, but definitely still working.
Yeah.
That's
It's been a
cool.
fucking shit show.
It's a
Yeah. Our industry it's in trouble for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I shouldn't
To an
say
extent.
that.
It's
Yeah,
changing.
exactly. I shouldn't
It's
say that.
changing.
It's not in trouble. It's changing, but I think the indoor space, the physical space, that's in trouble.
I
Yeah.
think it's a change that's happened too sudden. I mean, it was gonna be at some point that virtual training is gonna take over. Not not take over, but it's gonna be a big part. And I think with the whole lockdown, everybody's like, wait, what the fuck? It just happened overnight, kind of, and it's just piecing around stuff. But
Yeah, it's hard to adjust, I think, for a lot of people. I think,
Yeah.
if you saw the writing on the wall, you knew virtual training and sort of in-home training, in-home apparatus, all those things were sort of taking over, right?
Yeah.
You look at Peloton, you look at Mirror, and even Equinox was making a shift to putting machinery into people's homes. So you could
I know
sort of
that.
see that was coming, right? But like you said, David, that shit happened like pretty much against everyone's will.
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was, I thought it was gonna be for a month, maybe. Like beginning of March, everything shut down, and I told my clients, some of them were like, "Hey, I'm not stepping anywhere near the gym," and I'm like, "Yeah, cool, fine. I'll see you in a month or whatever."
Yes, yeah.
And it's fucking July. It's almost August.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
And it's insane. And I think just making money, it's tough in a way, just because you don't have the same number of people, and they're just the logistics that are sort of confusing, I think, in terms of what happened with us. But it's kind of like,
Yeah, I think in terms of really building a long-term and stable business, I think we're all sort of treading water right now, trying to find what that long-term fix is, right? I think for right now, I think we're all sort of okay, but looking out, if you want to look out a year, project out 1 year, 2 years, like can we do what we're doing sustainably in large numbers, and large enough to sort of live and have a good living?
I can't.
I think that's a question. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out.
How's your wife?
She's good, man. She's actually been working more than I have.
I mean,
Good.
she's better than you.
Yes, she is. It helps. It's true. And that's not a lie. That's not a really high bar, David.
Hey, listen. I don't know.
And you guys
But
are
no,
feeling.
she's been good. Thanks for asking.
you guys are feeling well. I heard the other day down the grapevine that you guys actually got sick in the beginning of it.
I did. I got it. And
Wasn't it great?
yeah, it was awesome.
It was amazing.
I mean, I was really sick for like 2 days. I mean, really sick. And one day was really, really bad.
Wow.
But then the rest was fine, honestly. It was just like a normal sort of, bad cold. But one day I was laying in bed. I'm like, I'm sort of delirious and really weak. I had a high fever. Christine was getting freaked out. She was getting scared. And I sort of just like roused myself up. I like jumped up. I was laying, because I was sleeping in the living room. So I was like laying on the couch. And I just started doing laps in our apartment. I started like walking back and forth in our apartment because I'm like, fuck this. Like, I'm not going to die from this fucking disease. No, that's how I felt. I'm like, no way. Like, am I just going to like sit here and like, oh, I feel like shit. So I got up and I just started walking back and forth in our apartment for, I don't know, like 20 minutes. And I felt better. I did.
Wow.
Yeah. When it happened to me in the beginning, it was, I mean, for me, it started off as just pure body aches. And I don't know if me doing 500 kettlebell swings the day before, because I remember vividly, I did 500 swings on like a Monday.
Of course you did. That's
Monday. And the next day, the next 2 days, I couldn't fucking move. And then it hit me. It was like, it was bad.
500 swings without COVID is going to make you disabled for a week. So
exactly. What do you think?
But I was out for like 3 weeks. Yeah, it fucking sucked.
Can we talk about why you did 500 kettlebell swings? Like,
because I was
I'm sorry you got sick, but like, why the fuck did you?
Because I was bored.
Oh, okay. So you just like abuse yourself.
I was like, let me fucking do this. Let me get a 28 kilo bell after not working out for a week. Let me just do 500 swings because I'm a smart idiot.
Yeah, I guess so, David.
Yeah, and Doc did it too.
Yeah,
Doc did it too. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it was good for again, like everything changing and limited equipment, and it was let me just change up what I have of a program, and it was obviously on a cardiovascular standpoint good to have that in. I can't really run with my knees, so I was like, oh, this is good, and it's good. I've done it a couple times where it's just easy to just not. Again, like part of the difficulty in this scenario, I feel like if we're setting our own programs, right, and it gets boring, and again, we have limited equipment, so you have to be more creative. And if you can just have one thing, one tool, and just go and not think about it, there's benefits to that too. So again, it's you feel like you said, you feel your hamstrings and your glutes for like 3 days after. Good.
That's all you felt?
No, I hear you.
I didn't fall though. I'm like David.
I said that's all you felt.
The second time, but then the first time, I think part of my back. I did those ring pull-ups that like Angel was talking about, and my back was like the sorest it's felt in years.
Yeah.
And I felt like I don't know what, but
wouldn't it be kind of like doing a bench press with kettlebells on each side? In a way.
Oh yeah.
They're like all over the fucking place.
Unstable.
Yeah.
No, it is, and that's why I think like it just such a stimulus to my body. But it's good. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, kettlebells I feel like are really great. I mean, quarantine tool.
Yeah, if you have one, you're doing everything with them. There's actually a couple of tools that I've seen on Instagram. They're called Y is in the letter Y belt and something else, and it's it's like if you have the kettlebell, right, the bottom and the handle, and it's got a handle here, here, and here. So almost like the propeller of a plane.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so what you can do is it's stable to be like in a push-up. You can use it as a dumbbell. You can do swing, snatches. It's very clever. It has the dual combination ability of using like kettlebell on a dumbbell. And then the other thing I've seen is if we know vipers, sort of like tubes of handles on the outside and water within the tube.
Oh,
so
yes.
The center mass is always just being displaced. And
that Y bell sounds really interesting.
Yeah, if I find out, I'll try and send it to you. But
I mean, I actually haven't really been. I haven't been doing a ton of weights at all. I've been using bands mostly, and I've been cycling like crazy. I mean, I bought like a new bike, and I've just been like biking like.
I need to do that next. I need to get a bike.
Nice.
City bike's okay, but I need to get a new bike.
It's not
It's not
yeah.
the same,
I've been,
yeah.
I mean, out here, like I did a 50-mile bike ride. I went out to Montauk. I went to
Wow.
these, I mean,
Did you get like a road bike?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
It's saved me, I think. It saved my mind. Just like being able to get out and just be outside for, a few hours has made a big difference.
Nice.
Nice.
I highly recommend it.
I'm gonna look at
Just buy
I'm
me a
gonna look
bike
some
and ship
today,
it to
yeah.
me.
Ship it to you. I'll lend you a bike. How about that?
I down. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, you can borrow my bike. Well, you can borrow one of my bikes when I'm in Aspen if you want.
Yeah, we'll chat. We'll chat about that.
There you
All right.
go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into some of the nitty-gritty questions that we had for you.
Oh shit.
Shit! Here we go.
So this is going to be a two-part question, but the first part is, how long have you been in the fitness industry? About like 10 years or something like that?
Yes, yeah,
also,
10 years.
Okay, and then also, like, how has your perspective on health and wellness changed in the past 10 years?
Oh shit, man, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, so I've been in the fitness industry for 10 years, and it's funny that you asked me that question right off the bat, because like in the bio that I'm going to send you guys, like that was sort of what I said. I've been in the industry 10 years, and in that 10 years, I've seen the industry just like constantly changing, right? Constantly changing and evolving, and especially with the advent of Instagram and I think like YouTube stardom and things like that. I think the idea of fitness has really sort of shifted. What does it mean to be fit? Okay, what does it look like when one is fit? And so I think what's changed the most, I think, is you've seen sort of a branching out of ideas. Okay, one is sort of this aesthetic idea of what fitness is, right? So if you look a certain way, then you're fit, right? If you have a six-pack, you have low body fat, then you're fit. Okay, but all of us know that that's not the case, right? You can have a six-pack and be shredded and low body fat and not be fit, not be flexible, right? Like not be agile, not be able to move. And I don't see that as fitness. Okay, then you have, I think, another sort of area of fitness where it's very intellectual. Okay, like people are really sort of examining and analyzing what it means to move a certain way. Okay, what it means to sort of be strong, right? And then I think you have like a whole sort of alternative side, right? Where you have guys like Ido Portal and you have like Animal Flow and you have people just sort of moving around and using their body in sort of novel ways. And I think overall it's been really good for fitness. But I do think, I definitely think the advent of Instagram and YouTube has made sort of the aesthetic desires, I think, a little bit too strong. And I would say if I could pinpoint one change, I would say like I had never been so exposed to like aesthetically driven fitness as I have been in the last sort of 5 years.
Wow.
So like the first 5 years, it was, I think, a lot of people just like exercise, just doing different things and bench press and squats and deadlifts, and kettlebells and gymnastics rings. And then all of a sudden it was like fit competitions and bikini and, bodybuilding. And I feel like, that could be a product of 76th Street, how 76th Street has sort of changed. But I do think sort of Instagram and has sort of really driven that.
That's interesting you say that, because when you look at some, even athletes and performance, like sports performance, everybody's almost trying to look a certain part. Like they're an athlete, but also a model on the side, or like they have to have like an aesthetic that they're chasing along with, just pure performance for whatever sport that they're playing, which is actually, it's not the same, right? Just because you look a certain way doesn't mean that you can perform a certain way. But it's interesting to kind of see like how things have adapted over the past couple of years with, as you said, like Instagram, YouTube, a whole bunch of other, like I guess like the internet, just everybody seeing other people and just like, I need to be the next big thing, where it's like a celebrity and an athlete, or, even people, they just have to feel, there's a need to feel like they're something more than what they currently are. And aesthetics come first in that chain, and then everything else.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think. And for better or worse, I think psychologically, from a psychological standpoint, it's not good and not healthy. I think.
Yeah.
I do, and I think like if you there are a number of sort of studies that show body fat is a bell curve. Okay, your lifespan relative to your body fat. Okay, if you have really high body fat, you have a lower lifespan. But actually, if you have really low body fat, you have a lower lifespan. So, and if you just think about the body in general, right? Just from like an anecdotal standpoint, it doesn't like extremes. Okay, like if you just sat around eating corn every day, right? Eventually, you would be malnourished, right? Or if you just did, one single arm chest press every day, eventually you would just you'd be rotated, you'd hurt your back or your hip, right? Like the body doesn't like to be specialized. It usually likes like sort of a broad approach. And I think when you see people sort of approaching the body from like, oh, I gotta have a six pack, right? Or I gotta have low body fat. I think it's not healthy. I think it's generally toxic in any number of ways, physically and mentally.
Yeah, I can only assume like what your approach with kids. Like there's that constant controversy with how do you train your kids? Do you train them for one single sport or one single position, or do you generalize them? Like keep them super specific from an early age, or do you generalize their training? But I completely agree. I think that it's the body would benefit from having a wider base or a wider foundation, as opposed to just like strictly one thing. But all right,
hold on, David. David, are you talking? Because
you're
you were muted.
Can you hear me?
You're muted.
I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, now I was gonna say it also works, I think, in the other side of the spectrum, right? Like for me, it was for a big majority of like my entire, I think, fitness journey was like squatting 400 pounds, deadlifting 6, and that fucked me up to some extent. Like I've had my fair share of injuries and here and there, but I think when I started incorporating kettlebells and doing, some more cardiovascular work, regardless of body fat percentage, I think it just helped me mentally and also to reduce the risk of a lot of injuries.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like since I haven't been lifting weights, my body has felt really good.
I mean, you don't, so.
Yeah, that's true. I don't. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't really lift.
You don't what?
I don't really lift weights. I mean,
What do you do again?
I did. I don't do anything,
Who are you?
I just walk around the gym and I pick something up and then I put it down. That's it.
For the IG, and then you just stop.
That's it. I pick it up and make sure everyone sees me picking it up, and then I put it down.
Hashtag sponsors.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yo, Ron, where you at?
Shout out.
Oh my goodness.
Lulu sponsorship soon.
Talk a little bit about when you started exploring veganism, and did you learn anything from that journey?
So I started to explore veganism, I would say about 6 years ago, and maybe more, maybe 7 years ago. And really it was a product of Christine. I mean, Christine was like, she gets eczema from dairy, and she has several other food allergies, and she wanted to, try to reduce the amount of irritation she had in her skin. And I think also she was dancing at the time, so she was sort of looking for a way to, keep her weight down. So when she first approached me, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I'm like, no, that's stupid. What do you mean no animal protein, like no meat? Like you're crazy. But then, like I think like a lot of things when you're ignorant, right? When you don't sort of have all the information, you make a snap judgment. And I read a little bit about it, and I decided to give it a try, and I found it was just amazing. It was like a light switch. My body just ran really well all the time. I just had tons of energy. I just felt good all the time. And but over time that sort of diminished. Okay. So like I was vegan for about, I would say 3 years. And the last year was sort of like, I was D3 deficient, I was B12 deficient, and I was supplementing those things too. So like, it wasn't like I was, not trying to not be deficient. I was like, I'm taking nutritional yeast, which is really high in B12. I had it in all my food. D3, I would supplement that. And, but anyway, it wasn't a great last year. So I decided to do some more reading because I was super like, well, I thought veganism was sort of like the way, like our bodies are sort of, it seemed like, oh, this is what our bodies are meant to do. That's how I felt, the first couple of years. But then how I felt wasn't, lining up with that anymore. So I started to do some more reading, and I found out it seems like a lot of tribes, a lot of humans who just have a straight vegan diet, they don't live very long. So this all sort of goes back to like longevity, right? So this is another time I'm using this example. They don't live very long, and they're very small, all right? People who primarily eat meat, they're very large, very big hearts, but they also don't live very long, and the people who sort of are in between, they have some dairy, they have some meat, they have vegetables, but they also sort of grow their own vegetables, right? They raise their own meat. Those people live the longest, and it was a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and it was written by, ironically, a dentist, but he wrote the book because his son died very suddenly, and he sort of went on this journey to sort of figure out like health and wellness, right? He was very curious about it, so he started studying indigenous populations. And so along the way, I think like I found that being mostly vegan is sort of, I think, the best way. Like, so you're mostly vegan, but then incorporating some animal protein or products, right? Like some dairy, preferably non-pasteurized raw dairy, right? Like some beef, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised beef. Same with, any other animal. And I find personally that that's worked best for me so far, right? Maybe in a year or so, I'll have to read another book that will change my mind completely.
But that's honestly, the book that you described, having the author had been a dentist, doesn't sound too far-fetched, because you got to look at dentistry when you want to try to figure out what types of food sources an animal would eat, right? Even going to like any animal, right? So you just got to figure it out, like why do they have like mainly flat teeth? Why do they have like what is it, the canines? I don't know exactly. Like each tooth, like each depiction of the tooth, but like why do we have a hybrid? And I guess it's because of what you had described, like a versatile diet, where you can eat leafy greens and you can eat like fruits and vegetables, and maybe that's the primary source of your nutrients, and then like meats here and there. But we wouldn't eat meat every single day, right? Like that's just eating it to exhaustion. You can't hunt like that.
Yes. Yeah, and if you look at our digestive systems, so our cecums, right, which like plays a big role in sort of breaking down meat. If you look at carnivores, they have these super long cecums, right? It's part of your intestines, super long. And it's so that they can sort of take that meat and hold it and digest it and break it down well enough so that they can get all the proper nutrients. But we don't have that. And if you look at herbivores, for instance, they have like multiple chambers in their stomachs because we can't break down cellulose. Like we just can't do it. Like we're not, our bodies aren't able to do it, which is why like the high fiber in vegetables is really good for us because it helps us shit, right? But it's not good for nutrient consumption, right? We're not herbivorous, right? And we're not carnivorous, we're omnivorous. And I think like it's important to remember from a physiological standpoint and a biological standpoint that that's the way our systems are set up, right? It's not set up to be, to eat meat every day, all day, but it's also not set up to just only eat vegetables.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for people who are trying to either go one way or the other, like for people who are, because diet, or I shouldn't say diet, but like nutrition is a very tricky subject depending on the person and their situation, and also depending on the age, right? I feel like kids are more like you can just throw a plate of food in front of them, they'll eat whatever it is eventually. But do you have any tips for people who are trying to make a change to their nutrition?
I would say my number one piece of advice would be to be willing to try different things, be adventurous, and find what works for you. Don't necessarily do what worked for your friend or what worked for your wife or sister, etc. Because there's this field of nutrition called nutrigenics, okay, and it sort of examines how certain foods react to your particular genetic profile. So if you eat a certain food, you have a certain type of gene expression, right? And it's in its very sort of infantile stages, but the fact is that each one of us will respond to certain foods in a different way. So my vegan might look very different from your vegan, right? And your sort of omnivorous diet will look very different from mine. And I think be willing to play around and try what works, what doesn't work. And also be ready to be hungry a lot, because you end up hungry a lot. That's what I would say. Be patient and be ready to be hungry.
Oh man, I don't even want to hear that right now. I
I
had some salmon last night, and typically I have a protein and a carbohydrate, and I just had salmon. I was just, I don't need. I was like, it's just in my mind. My mind is just telling me I need a carbohydrate to eat with this protein. Let me just eat the salmon. I was full. Went to sleep, fine, whatever. When I woke up in the morning, I was starving because I'm just, I guess, so used to having those carbohydrates, I guess, to hold me down overnight. I don't know what it is, but yeah. And I had sessions, so I rode the bike. I was downtown, didn't have food, and I was just like,
goodness.
I feel like I'm dying. I was like, I think I got COVID. I'm on the bike, city bike.
Oh my God. I think I got COVID. Oh my God.
COVID.
David, help. But I already asked, I think I asked too many questions. I think I stepped on Jacques' toes. So I'm going to pass the mic to whoever's next so you guys can continue going from there.
I have a couple questions. One that I just thought of now after talking about nutrition and veganism and what certain people eat. There's this thought, I think, or this idea that people or that civilization has evolved from eating a certain type of way to eating what it is, what we're supposed to eat now. Or you have some people that are against veganism, saying, hey, we evolved into eating meat because this is all we had, and we had to hunt and we had to do this. And other people are saying, well, that's not the right way because we don't have these teeth or we don't have that. So what's your thought on that in terms of evolution in what people would eat, basically?
Well, I think to look at sort of our ancestry is, I think, a mistake, right? Because the majority of our ancestors, they didn't live past 25, right? They didn't live very long. So if you want to start eating what they ate, okay, so you only want to live to 25. I don't think using our ancestors as a model for health is the best way to go about being healthy in our diets. But I will say again that it's important to know what works best for you. I think it's more of an individual basis. And I hate I hate thinking of things in that way. What are we supposed to do? Because that sort of, I think, betrays intelligent design, right? And if we're going to start saying that there's some design here, right, then there's main purpose, then that means my way of life could potentially be wrong, right? As could all of ours. So who's to tell us, by the way, what the right way of living our lives is? Who's telling us what the best way to eat is? Right? Typically, it's a food company who's putting out an advertisement, who's telling you that, hey, you need to eat, X amount of carbs, right? And it's really so that we can sell X amount of carbs, right? Cereal companies want you to eat cereals, right? So that they can make money. That's not on some conspiracy shit. That's just fact, right? Who do you think sits down and came up with a lot of those guidelines, the food pyramid, right? Like now my plate's a little bit different, right? They've sort of consulted people who are a little bit more independent, but the fact is a lot of those doctors, a lot of those people doing research, they're paid, okay, by large companies to sort of do the research that says their product is best. So I would say, again, like my number one thing is like find what works best for you. Like I don't think there's a supposed, right, outside of our DNA, right, which we're just not there yet. But, you know, technologically speaking, it would be great to get a blood test, right, and get your DNA mapped and then get a profile of all the foods you should and shouldn't eat, right, which eventually is going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. But we're not there. So if you eat something and you feel kind of tired or you feel off, guess what? You probably shouldn't eat that food.
Right. The runs, you're like, no, just keep eating it.
You know how many people? But think about how many people I know who are like, oh yeah, like I had that burger the other night. Man, it gives me the shits. And it's like, man, every time I eat a burger, I got to take a shit. And it's like, okay, so you get diarrhea every time you eat a hamburger. Like, so why are you still eating hamburgers? I'm confused. Do you know? Like, but we all do that, right? We all do that. We have foods that we like that we know aren't good for us.
Yeah, weighing up that satisfying feeling, taste for 10 minutes. And for some people, for some of us, that's worth the outcome, the post-food result. Yeah. That's why I've been to Taco Bell this whole quarantine, because I love Taco Bell, but I know it does to me. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, perfect example. And so like I think it's finding what works for you. And you know, and like you said, Jacques, there is a psychological component that cannot be overestimated, right? That's super important. Like the satisfying feeling of eating Taco Bell for you is worth like the pain that you.
I haven't done it since quarantine. I just want to let our listeners know that. Just carry on.
I mean, like right now, like pizza, for instance, if I eat pizza, I don't feel great. I don't get the shits or anything, but I won't feel great. But I love pizza, right? I love pizza. But I still eat pizza, right?
There's also gray areas to that point as well, all right, which I like to dive into as well, where if we, like, for example, if you had Papa John's pizza, like when I used to live in Brooklyn, there was a Papa John's like on the block every Sunday. Papa John's. That's where it's cool, right?
I knew that David was going to say something.
Shut up, David. Anyway, there was
I never had Papa John's. I don't know what the fuck Papa John's
Papa
is.
John's. So Papa John's.
Papa John's.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Papa J.
Okay.
So there was
I missed this.
The ripping. So there was in my second apartment in Brooklyn, there was a Papa John's on the block, and it was like a ritual, right? It was like every Sunday, put the NFL on. Papa John's was so heavy, but it was so cheap. I wasn't making the same money that I was more recently at Equinox, and it's whatever, right? But like now, like what you're saying, I love pizza too. I think that's like one thing I would never give up. But now, if I get something from either like quality and quantity combined as the variables, where like if I go to like around here in Hell's Kitchen, there's so many dollar slice places. If I get 2 or 3 slices, that's a sufficient dose for me to get what I want. But I haven't gone overboard on getting like a double or like an extra pizza from Papa John's. So like I've given a bit of a taste of what I want. And again, the quality is a bit better. Or if I get a pizza from Trader Joe's, again, I'm not saying it's the cleanest, most purest food, but well, I love Trader Joe's, but there's better foods out there for that choice, right? If you made it homemade from a cauliflower crust or whatever. But I think that's all right. Shut up, David. That's kind of playing those variables that can be quite important when we talk to our clients about this kind of stuff as well, is still keeping what you want exactly, but modifying that. Like it's the same thing with right, like clients have done this in the past where they've covered up their McDonald's description by saying, oh, for dinner I had chicken with a bit of bread, lettuce and potatoes. They've
described a chicken sandwich
with fries. 100% I've heard that. Like but if a client tells you I've had chicken with lettuce and potatoes, you're like, that's a good meal. But when you mask it in a certain way, again, they're not lying, they're just telling you certain parts of the truth, right? So there's that to be said as well, where like if you know, there's nothing wrong with having, like a client of mine as well said, oh, because we were talking about nutrition, he said, oh, I purposely didn't have the bun because I was thinking, I was like, no, like or avoiding carbs. Like, no, that's not the thought process we want to have. It's not, you can't have carbs. It's like, how are you measuring it, how often, and what the quality, you said, what the quality is. If you're having fries, yes, your potato intake is significantly higher, but if you're having the sweet potatoes and they were like baked or with very, very minimal, that's but that's such a interesting.
Yeah, I think the quality, I think you bring up a really, really good point. And it also goes back to sort of David's point where we look historically at how we've eaten and what we've eaten. So I would say I would make an amendment as far as like looking at our ancestors and what they ate. I would say that the difference in the quality of food is probably paramount. Like they probably ate more pure food than we do now. And I remember like, I don't know, like 4 years ago at the Museum of Natural History, they had this really sort of awesome, I don't know what you call it, right?
Exhibit.
They just had this exhibit, yeah, that was that talked about the history of our food. And they showed sort of how we have bred our food to look a certain way and to taste a certain way. And they showed how corn was like this. Okay, originally it's like this teeny little thing, the corn that we all see and know and love, like most of it was very small. By the way, there are like 50 different species of corn. We only eat one species, which is a whole other topic. But anyway, like we bred it so that it would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and taste better and better and better and better and better. All the while, we have no idea what that does to us, right? Like to our bodies, how our bodies respond to that. Right, it's the same with any number of foods. Like apples were like super teeny, right? Like super small, like small things. They weren't huge like they are now. And the same with wheat, right? We've sort of bred wheat so that it gives a higher yield, so that we can feed more people.
The shelf life of these foods, as well, you're talking about, have been improved by genetically modifying them as well, right?
Exactly, that's another thing, right? So like, I do think there's something to be said, again, Jacques, so you make a really excellent point about quality. And David, I think combining those points, right, quality and historical quality, like what is best for the body. And I would say, again, yes, find what's best for you, but it is important, I think, to try to stick to foods that are as close to natural, whatever that means anymore, but natural as possible, like locally produced food, like locally grown, locally raised.
It's basically stuff. a lot of what people think nowadays as boring food.
Yes.
It's not the burgers. It's not the pizza with the 50 million toppings. It's more of like, just fucking eat some broccoli or some fucking sweet potato, a piece of salmon, and you'll be so much better off than eating all that other crap that's very, it's got just so much shit that you don't even know,
Yes, yeah.
It's like with you looking at the ingredients and you can't pronounce half of the shit.
Oh my god!
Wow, that's a telling sign. If you can't pronounce that name, if it's like, and also, one use of my chemistry major is the longer that name,
yes,
usually
the longer
it's
the
talking about
chain.
Yeah. So the more complicated that molecule, that element is. So that's another telltale sign. Along with
the more man-made it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's funny. I think that's one of the reasons our country has been decimated by this virus, right? Like that I don't think is getting a lot of play, and it's something that has irritated me to no end, which is, hundreds of thousands of people die every year from heart disease. Okay, we're one of the most unhealthy nations in the world. Full stop, right? We suffer from tremendous amounts of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, okay, which are all risk factors for this disease, right? Like, and that's something I think like hasn't gotten spoken about enough. Like, we're an unhealthy nation. And if we were a healthier nation, we would have been better equipped to sort of deal with this disease. And I think it all sort of stems to, how we eat, right? How we sort of go about our day-to-day lives, right? Whether or not we exercise, etc. But how we eat is super important.
For real.
I want to shift a little bit on, current state of affairs. I know, Antoine, you have a lot of, whenever we're back at work, we always have these conversations and things like that in terms of just shit that's going on and about some people just not taking it seriously. For example, right now, a quick question is like, what do you think about these people that are refusing to wear masks? Like it's a question that seems so trivial, but I think now mask wearing has become very political, where if you're wearing a mask, you are part of this school of thought, and whereas if you don't wear a thought, you're patriotic because you're being infringed on your rights, apparently, because you're wearing a mask, you know?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing with the mask wearing is just human nature, honestly. It's, you know, if you tell a human being not to do something enough times, they're going to want to do it. And I think, like, in this country, we're so individualistic, right? We are an individualistic nation, right? It's all about us, ourselves. And the idea that we should sacrifice our comfort or happiness or anything for that matter for the collective good is a very sort of foreign idea. Okay, which is why I think when you see the Eastern nations that have done a better job, like, they're collectivist nations, right? The idea of sacrificing for the greater good is, like, not foreign at all. That's just what you do. Right? But here, that's not the case. So I think when you see people, I'm not going to wear a mask, it's infringing against my rights. Like, it's very patriotic. I think actually at the end of the day, it is very patriotic, right? Because it's a sort of, I would say, battle cry for liberty and freedom, right? The liberty and freedom to do what you want. The only problem with that is it is also sort of a large outpouring of stupidity, right? Like, you're essentially saying, like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot, right? I'm just an asshole, and I'm also stupid, right? Like, yes, I'm doing what I want, but at the same time, I'm contributing to sort of, like, the very malaise that I am trying to rail against, right? I don't want to be stuck at home. Like, I want to go to work. Well, it's like, okay, well, if you and people like you wore a mask more often, we'd probably be able to go to work and leave home much sooner. But because you're fighting against this thing, like, you know, we're sort of
Like,
now,
it's not real.
Yeah, exactly. We're in July and we're about to be in August. And by the way, like, come fall, it's all going to, you know,
again, probably,
get worse again. So I think, like,
it's infuriating.
It's infuriating, but I understand it in a way. I do understand it in a way, because, look, think about it this way. The government has told us that we can't go to work, right? Essentially, we cannot go to work, right? We have to stay at home, but they're not paying our salaries.
And rent isn't being
paused.
Rent's
not on hold.
Nope.
I still got to pay bills, right? Like, I'm sort of cool if you want to tell me, well, this is for the greater good. Everyone's got to stay home. You can't go to work. And here, by the way, here's either no rent, no bills, no nothing, or here's your salary that you've been making, you know, for the last, 10 years. I'm cool with that. But if you're going to tell me I got to stay home, I can't work,
earn, but I have to still pay.
I can't earn.
Yeah.
But I still got to keep paying my bills.
How's that work?
Well,
especially if you have people like Jeff Bezos making $13 billion a day.
And now everyone's at home ordering from Amazon as well. So he's making even more money.
Yeah. So the way I see it is, I can't be mad at those people, because in a way they're sort of right? Like, you're taking all these things from me, right? You're taking my ability to move freely within the world, and you're telling me I have to do all these things, but you are not sort of compensating me fairly.
Yeah.
So I see it. I don't agree.
But the thing is, in my opinion, your view on it right now, saying that it's right because of what you just said, is completely different from people saying I'm not wearing a mask because it's against my right. You know, whereas, like, it's kind of sticking it to people that are like, fuck you, you know, you're weak because you're wearing a mask. I'm like, no, asshole. It's because I listen to the scientific community first. I don't listen to this fucking, you know, person with fucking, you know, aromatherapy. Not to knock on people with that, but it's like, those are people that is just like, you know, no, you don't, you know, you have all these.
You're not inhaling bleach fumes?
Yeah, like, it's insane. I think it's not smart. I mean, and it's just tough. And that brings me to my last point before someone else asks, but education. I mean, you're big on education, and especially now with COVID and even with the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, not the movement, you know, as a collective, but I think just in general, How do you think education do you think education needs to play a bigger role in terms of educating people on COVID, BLM, just things in general?
Yes, I think for me, I think education, as you all know, I think education is very important. But I think one of the most important things of education, parts of education, is that it allows you to broaden your understanding of the world, right? So like earlier on, we talked about diet and we talked about veganism. And I sort of said, like, when I first heard about it, I was like, ah, fuck that. That's weird. Why would I ever do that? Right. But then what did I do? I read about it. I got some information. And I think like the big problem that we have in this country is that people don't get the right type of information. Okay. Too frequently, they get really bad information. Right. And then the other, they don't seek out information. Okay. But when they do, sometimes when they do seek it out, they get really just shitty information.
But it's hard with the just a shit ton of news.
No, it's true.
They don't even know what's right or wrong.
But I think that's critical thinking. And that's sort of what education and higher education sort of gives you, right? Like I would say, like, even if I got nothing out of my undergraduate degree, like nothing, like no usable skill, like if there was nothing else that I got out of it, it was critical thinking skills. I would say that's what I would say I got that helped me improve the most. How do I evaluate information, right? Like what's good information, what's bad information, right? And I think like that is sort of missing from a lot of people. They don't know how to discern from good information and bad information. Not only that, like, I mean, people are sort of stuck in their own bubbles. There's this great podcast called Rabbit Hole. I don't know if any of you guys have listened to that. It's a New York Times podcast. So good. And they sort of talk about confirmation bias. So you know what confirmation bias is? So like frequently when you go on the internet, you don't go on the internet to refute your beliefs. Okay, you go onto the internet to sort of solidify your beliefs, right? To confirm what it is that you already believe, right? So, and then when you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram, what do? You befriend people who confirm those beliefs, who believe the same things as you, who think the same way as you, right? Very few times do we seek out information that conflicts with our sort of ideas and beliefs. So, I mean, like, there's so many issues, I think, that compound what's going on now. But I do think a lack of education is one, but it's deeper than that. I don't know if I could just say it's a lack of education. Because, by the way, there's some really highly educated people who are Trump supporters, right? Like, I mean, highly educated people, PhDs, right? Who spent, their whole lives educating themselves.
Yeah. And that's the thing too and I think I made this point on the earlier episode of the podcast was whatever study you look at, let's say, for example, like squatting past, parallel could be beneficial than squatting above parallel. But you have people like LeBron James squatting above parallel, and people are like, oh, but he does it, so I want to be athletic like him, so it's right. And now you made a point of highly educated people with PhDs like saying Trump is the greatest president ever, and then you have other people saying, oh, but he says it and he's really smart, so I'm going to believe him. So it just has to do, like you said, just discerning what's bullshit and what's not.
Yeah. There's so much to it, It's education, but then it's how we're raised. It's where we're raised. It's where we grow up. It's our surroundings.
Yeah.
And part of it is us, by the way,
also,
and
it's
the
hard.
agency that we have. Yeah, life is fucking hard.
Nowadays too, the last thing before we move on, I don't want to take more of your time, but
my time, I'm not doing anything. This is the most exciting part of my day.
No, but so the thing is, it's also hard nowadays to ask people about their culture. It's hard because you don't want to be politically incorrect. For example, let's say, this is an extreme example. Let's say you go up to somebody that you grew up thinking that they only like watermelon, they love fried chicken, they're thugs, they're super predators, they're this, and that. And you're like, hey, do you like watermelon and fried chicken? And the people be like, what the fuck are you like? What? Like, are you racist because you're asking me this? Like, it's tough nowadays too with political correctiveness and not trying to offend people, and it's hard. Like, what is one way you would probably go about trying to learn about other people's cultures without being offensive?
David, that's a really good point. People are very sensitive, and it's difficult to have certain conversations, especially conversations where you're on opposing sides, and not take it personally. What would I do? I would, I think it's all about how you sort of preface that type of question. I think if you go up to someone and say, "Do you like watermelon?" Like, I hear you guys like watermelon, but is that true? Like, that's a little insensitive, right? And I think for someone to hear that, they're sort of within their bounds to take it however they want, right? They could take it like, what the fuck are you, what? Like, why are you saying that? But if you say, hey, like, you mind if I ask you a question? Might seem a little insensitive, but honestly, I don't know, right? Like, I'm just curious. You're going to get a much more favorable response than if you're just like, you like fried chicken, right? Like, but you can play basketball, though. Like, I know you guys. No?
Oh shit.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that, like, growing up, I encountered so many people who were sort of just like, oh yeah, like you can dance and you can play basketball, and like your dad's
you played lacrosse, didn't you?
And like, I played lacrosse.
Yeah,
I didn't play basketball.
Yeah.
They all wanted me to play basketball. I'm like, I don't fucking play basketball. Like, I'm okay at basketball, but that's not my sport. Like, I like to run, or I like to hit things, and like, like, that's what I like to do. So I played football and I played lacrosse. But I do think that yes, people are sensitive. All right, to your point, people are a lot more sensitive. But then I think the other end of that spectrum is that people don't have tact. All right, we're not as tactful society as we used to be. Like, so many norms and so many ways that you would behave and towards other people have sort of gone by the wayside, right? The chivalry is dead, right? That's true. People aren't kind. They're not necessarily kind to one another anymore. I mean, how many people have you seen help an old woman cross the street, right? Like, and that sounds stupid, right? But like, why not? I help old people cross the street if I feel like they need to cross the street. Like, what? That's sort of that should be your part of your civic duty. And I think the ideas of how we treat one another have shifted so much because of like our me ways, right? We're an individualistic nation. And then I do think social media compounds that, right? It makes us even more fixated on the self. I think we forget that, like, oh, I need to be considerate of like what you're feeling.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, great point. I mean, this could go on so long, even with like cancel culture, like, but I don't want to take any more time away from the questions we have for you.
Yeah, ask away. I'm good. I'm enjoying this.
Cool. So I wanted to ask you on a different note more about how you typically, I know you spoke about right now it's been mostly bands and cycling, like out west or uptown, but how have you typically designed your program pre-COVID, during COVID, and like how far would you go to describing or categorizing it?
So like pre-COVID, my programming was, I think I was sort of floundering in my programming. I didn't really have a central theme or central goal. The number one thing was that I just wanted to like be healthy and strong. Right before COVID.
And what does that look like for you as well? So when you talk about being healthy and strong, like because everyone's got their different image of the like.
Yeah, right before COVID, it was more flexibility and like being able to like pull my leg a certain length, like towards my head. That was like a big thing. I'm like trying to get my hamstrings more flexible. And then squatting, that was like my strength measure. Like I would squat like once a week, and I was just trying to sort of maintain a certain rep and weight sort of threshold. But honestly,
like 90%
right?
a week?
What's that?
Like 90% every time you squat?
No,
Not that
like no, not that much. Like 70 to 80% of 1RM, probably. And I was only doing it once a week, and that was really it, honestly. And like I said, before COVID, I was sort of floundering in my programming. Before that, though, I was doing a lot of kettlebells. That was like I was doing like a, let's see, what was I doing with the kettlebells? I was doing a threshold series, right, where I would try to do like you guys are saying 500 reps of swings.
Swings, yeah.
So I would do like every day I was doing like 200 reps, single arm swings, 100 reps per hand, right? That was sort of a thing I had done like maybe 3 or 4 months.
What was the drive behind that and the like science that you'd research about it saying?
Bro, I just get bored. That was the drive behind that was boredom, and then the science was nil, right? Like there was no scientific thought really given to it.
So similar to what we discussed earlier, if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, that just sometimes the downside of being fitness professionals and even though we love our jobs, that one downside, if we are always composing programs and designing exercise, what's my train of thought? Like just programming in general, having that standard, simple, but variable number of reps, it, like I said, is just easier. And it's like, all right, this is going to be on my 2 days of warm up or my cardiovascular metabolic finisher. So similar kind of theory or thought process behind that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I went through a phase where I was doing like the slider board, you know, I would do that twice a week, and I would do like 10 rounds at 1 minute, and I would do like a typical Tabata, like 1 minute on, 30 seconds off. And like, I mean, it was, I haven't been on a program because I haven't had a goal, you know? And I think like that's sort of what I think we as fitness professionals sort of forget. Right? Like, why do we program? We program because we have a goal, right? If you don't have a goal, then do you really need to program? I don't know, right? Like, because what's really the point? Like, why are you putting your body through these paces, right? If you have nothing that you're striving for. And that was sort of where I'd gotten to in the last, I think, year, where I'm sort of like, I have no goal. There's nothing I want to do, nothing I care to do. And I want my body to feel good. So I'm just going to do what feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, I won't do it. But like, if I get a goal, then I'll program for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I haven't had one in so long.
What was the last goal you had then? And what was that program look like?
The last goal I had.
Bodyboarding? We can see you doing bodyboarding.
Oh my gosh!
I was gonna say for people
that's
who
not
are
throwing
wondering...
shit. That's not throwing shade on bodyboarding.
No, it's just funny. It's just funny because you know that I'm not into it.
It's just not. It's just a different alley too. Yeah.
I was gonna say for people who are wondering what happens when you reach all your fitness goals, like this is what the end looks like. You're just like, I don't even remember.
Right. I think my
yeah, right.
My last goal was, I think we were going to have a comp. This is when Rob Johnson still worked at Equinox. Who remembers Rob Johnson?
I remember.
We're gonna have a competition, and it was like burpees.
Oh, I remember that. Was that the end of a forum or something like that? Or was that was like a competition? Pistol squats, I think, was part of it.
Yes, but then it got canceled.
Right.
Like, we were gonna have a competition, and then it got canceled, and then that was the last time I trained for something.
I remember.
Honestly,
I was a new hire when that happened, and I was like, "Wow, these guys are insane."
They made you stand up at the front. Hi, I'm Angel. And,
I'm 3 things about me. I like video games.
I don't like avocado.
I don't like avocado.
I don't like avocado.
That's right.
That's the first one.
And
then everyone's like, "Fuck this guy. Doesn't like avocados. Right. We can't hang with him."
Get this guy. Your last name's what?
Sanchez. You don't like avocado? This guy's hilarious. He's a comedian.
Get this guy out of here.
This guy's hilarious.
The goal setting is like to hop on that is kind of like the last goal I had was one of my lifting meets. And that's when I was, I think, a little more serious in terms of what I was doing. Now it's kind of like, well, let's just move around. Let's just do some kettlebell shit, you know?
I think that's a great point, you, without interjecting what you're about to say, but I think that was something when I speak to my clients about if there is loose or tight measures around the kind of programming where I think, and it's a little bit like eating, and even with regeneration, I think you need to have those days where you don't have a set time you wake up or go to bed. You need to have those days when you go a little more like with what you fancy with eating, right? Like, oh, this, like either that your body, like we spoke about earlier, doesn't agree with, but it's something you enjoy, like, okay, like once in a while. Same with moving. I think if you have that one day a week where there isn't too much rigid structure, where like personally, for example, I always do a lot of 4x10s. There's just what I think works well. It's what I like. But sometimes, whether it's shocking the body, where it's doing something different, doing 10 by 10 or 350, whatever it is, I think that's an important aspect to just, again, move. Like, and if your measure of that workout or that your program is, well, I'm pain-free, I sleep well, I'm eating well, I'm healthy, no underlying conditions. And those I think can sometimes be overlooked qualifiers of what a good program or a healthy lifestyle is, right? Like you said, if you don't have abs, or if you don't have a PR squat, or you don't have like sick biceps, I don't know what that feels like, right? Those are often overlooked. Like if you can say, again, if you can just be back down to earth and be like, wow, no, I have to just realize like I have good health. I don't have any issues. I can sleep. I don't, whether, whatever it is, I think that's often overlooked and is important to just tie that in, even if you have a program that's pretty rigid, having that one day.
I think, right, like we spend so much time trying to analyze and plan everything, right? So like, and I also think like, I'm like, I was in, I did my undergrad, I finished undergrad, and I'm like right to graduate school. And so like, I'm like on this rigid structure. So I think like sometimes when I'm in the gym, it's just like, I just want to do it.
The last thing you need is structure.
Yeah, exactly.
The structure of an hour being here is sufficient, right? If in that day is so structured, this is the only time in the day I get to work out, that's sufficient structure sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's played a role. Now with COVID, I feel like I've probably been a little bit more driven to like really do something. So I've been on the bike, like setting goals, setting RPM goals, setting wattage goals, setting mileage goals, things like that. And I think that because I don't have so much structure, that I've now sort of fallen into trying to find structure in my workouts.
That's cool. I kind of want to take over from that point as well, where you mentioned like now that things look different, and you spoke about how the industry is going. I have to admit, at the beginning of this, I thought the industry was going to dissolve, or not dissolve, but like seriously not be the same. Whereas I think it's just molding, right, and changing a little bit. And but it kind of leads me to ask you, what is, in terms of career, what are you ultimately looking to achieve? Where do you hope? Again, we spoke about structure and rigid and like your undergrad.
Yeah.
Where, like, let's say like 10 years from now, like what do you ultimately hope to be at a career level, like career-wise?
Well, I hope to fucking finish my master's. That'd be great. And then I looking at doing some work with motor imagery, right? So like, what happens, when we perform any type of movement is we create an abstract rendering of it in our brain, okay, before you do anything. And a lot of people have learned to sort of manipulate this abstract visualization or motor imagery. Like athletes do it all the time, musicians, to sort of further their either physical goals, but also mental goals. And right now, as far as like our industry goes with exercise and wellness and things like that, there isn't a lot of focus on that. Okay, so like one of my clients is like, I've really sort of, I mean, he's not even my client anymore. He's just my friend because I haven't trained him in 5 years. But I've gotten him to really, he's sort of really bought into the idea of visualization and meditation, and like he's super, like his life has changed, whatever. I haven't even had sort of like the experience that he's had, but he wants to sort of start a business and, you know, really try to bring the idea of using our minds, right, to sort of change how we use our bodies. And what I'd like to do, you know, over the next several years is continue to do research in that area. Okay, continue to sort of like find out what's behind the mind-body connection, like what's really underneath. Like one of the studies I'm going to do when this next semester starts is how important is knowledge, or like prior knowledge of systems in motor imagery. So what I mean by that is like each one of us on this call have prior knowledge of anatomy, right? So like if I said to you, for instance, you know, you're going to do this exercise, I want you to focus on your hamstring contracting, okay? How much does prior knowledge of what the hamstring is, okay, what a contraction is, and then what a contraction looks like, okay, how big of a role does that play in the efficacy of whatever it is I'm trying to have you do that involves the hamstring?
I would say a
Now,
lot. I would say a lot.
Now, anecdotally, there's some research that points to the fact that it being a lot, but no one's really done the research.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to do. And also like there's using modeling, right? So like using like a model of you and your movement and your body to sort of get you to further your movement and your body. So what I mean by that is like you come in and I say, okay, hey Angel, how you doing? I'm going to take, you know, some anthropomorphic measurements. I'm going to do a virtual rendering of your movement. So we're going to have you walk in this treadmill. We're going to have you squat. We're going to have you do all these different things, and I'm going to record it on a program on a computer. I'm going to take that movement, okay, and I'm going to take your measurements, and I'm going to render sort of the ideal version of whatever it is we're trying to do. So let's say Angel comes in, and Angel's a runner. Angel wants to, you know, take whatever, 30 seconds off of his mile. So we look at Angel's run and we say, okay, like this is how you need to run. This is what it looks like. Okay, not just like what you need to do, right? Not just saying like, oh, we need to strengthen this or strengthen that or stretch this or stretch that. But we need to actually get you to look at what your ideal run looks like at that speed, okay, to get that time. All right, and then use visualization or motor imagery to get that done. In conjunction with like actual sort of movement. And
so optimizing everyone's performance, right? Like making sure, identifying if there's more opportunity with utilizing more percentage of our brain to improve performance.
Yes, using the programs in our brain. Yeah, using what's already there, okay. Right? Because again, it's there, and that's like that's been probably the most interesting part of this program that I've been doing. That's the most interesting thing I've learned so far, which is like, yeah, how much we use imagination and visualization to move through the world, right? Our posture, our gait, everything is like, there is a reel of it in your mind, okay? And by the way, that reel gets compiled through your life. Right? Like as a child, right? Like for children, you have to reach over and over and over and over and over and over again. And like the brain is just building a program on how to reach. Like, you know, so babies that's why their limbs are all fucking all over the place, right? But then eventually it becomes more directed and more guided, and like then it's more precise. And then they're just working on, just precision and nuance. But at first it's all over the place, and your brain is building these programs, and then it hardwires these programs, you know, in your mind.
I think that would be really interesting to see that develop for a number of reasons. And the first thing that comes to mind is when we speak about optimizing our movement quality, and like you can talk about whether it's mobility, whether it's efficient recruitment of the muscles that you were talking about. It's interesting because we know that, let's say you took 10 first people that walk in the gym first thing like 5:30 a.m., right? Every one of those people has a different movement pattern, potential almost, or like just generally what their movement looks like, right? But some work in different professions, right? Some are more in hands-on profession, some are more academic, some are more, you know, let's say there are sometimes there's some, but even if you think about like the different kinds of doctors, right? There's some that are, they're working for the neurologist, some that are working for more in orthopedics. Like those are two different, well, I would say two different, but those are different compartments of medicine where they've just got either an understanding or component of their brain they're able to recruit that works a little differently than the other doctor, right? And it makes me think about, let's say if we talk about us, trainers, right? Trainers are more typically, even after a learning process, usually they train us for a reason, for a profession, because they're the ones that can almost exhibit better movement patterns than maybe the average person in the public, right? So if we talk about some of our clients and that maybe have, if we have more movement wealth, they have more financial wealth. It'd be interesting to see how what the world looks like if those who are financially wealthy are able to look more into their physical wealth in terms of movement wealth, and those of us perhaps like us that have higher levels of physical wealth and we're able to tap into more financial wealth, like of some sort of realm. I'd love to see, you know, like
yeah, I mean, like that's sort of the idea, right? Like using what you have to develop what you want.
Right.
And I do think like I like that physical wealth. I like that term, right? We have,
well, Anthony G brought it up. He spoke about clients where can I look sick in 2 weeks? And he's like, well, when is, or like, it was like for someone's birthday. And he's like, when is it? 2 weeks. He's like, can I be as rich as you in 2 weeks? Then you're like, well, obviously not. Like, and that really, I think I haven't ever used that of a client, but I think that's a really smart way of leveling the playing field. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No. The whole point is like, how much prior knowledge do our clients or the layman need to have, right, to sort of achieve our physical wealth?
Right.
And that's sort of what I'd like to look into. That's the research I want to do. And that's sort of like in the next, like 5 to 10 years, what I'd like to be able to do is be able to sort of manifest the research I'd like to do on that connection, right, into some sort of protocol for the layman, for, you know, NARPs, right, for everybody.
No.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like,
do you want to define that for our listeners, what NARP is?
Yeah, non-athletic regular people.
I think Mike came up with that, didn't he?
No, I came up with that.
Oh, you came up with that? Oh, my bad. I thought Mike did.
You know, the thing is I've already used some of this visualization with my clients to great effect. I mean, I've had clients sort of close their eyes and focus on their hamstrings being longer and more mobile, and they achieve more length, more range of motion in their hamstring than they have the entire time I've been working with them. Right? Just the idea of imagining your body doing something, right, can be enough. And there are studies that show that people who just imagine, for instance, moving or abducting their big toe. Just imagine it. They don't ever do it. Can actually achieve gains in abducting their big toe. So they measure them first, right? And they have them just sit and imagine abducting their big toe, and they do it for over like 2 weeks. And then suddenly they can abduct their big toe with greater range and greater force.
Interesting.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, it works. It's there, do you know? But like, there hasn't been someone at least that I've seen to take that sort of mechanism of motor imagery and visualization to something that everyone does and can do and utilizes to make themselves better.
That's awesome. All right, definitely keep us posted on that, because that's a really interesting concept. I love, and it's something that.
Guinea pig.
What's that?
Okay. I don't know if it'll work on you though, David.
Clinical trials, David Bravo.
No, I definitely will. Yeah. I'm going to be doing, hopefully, if I don't know what's going to happen with this semester. I need to get lab access. But.
Oh, right. Yeah. Labs. I wonder how that'll work. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up like everything we wanted to cover. I don't know if these guys had any questions or topics they want to jump on or.
I had one thing that I just wanted to run past you, because I was thinking, like, any conversation with Antoine, it's hard to like walk away and be like, oh, that was wasteful, right? But
Oh,
one
well,
of the
that's
things,
very nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
no, one of the things that I thought about,
Fuck
it was
you,
actually
David.
when you were talking to David, you guys had some constructive thing going on where you were talking about how like we have like our own circle, and you know, on Instagram especially, and like all these social media outlets, it's only what you want to hear and what you want to see. And I'm thinking in my head, because I had gone out to different circles, or I had, you know, during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, like people were like either strong left or strong right. Everybody was kind of like divided in that regard. And some of the stuff that I saw got me kind of like frustrated. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna unfollow, or I'm gonna like read the comments. And then you read the comments, and then you see all this stuff. And you know, part of it was like, for me, I was just thinking like, why am I so upset? Right? Like my heart like starts beating, starts sweating. Like I'm just like, you start to get angry, right? Like you start to get like fueled, but you're just like, another part of me was like, why are you upset right now? Like, what is it that this person had said that got you offended or got you to this point? And obviously some people say like use stronger words than others, but some people don't, right? But it's just like, we perceive it as one of those things that like, now that this person has upset me, I am going to unfollow, or I'm going to like report or do whatever or comment. But what if, as a social exercise to kind of like expand, we don't do that, right? Because cancel culture is a thing, and it's kind of like, you got to see, I don't know. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I think it's an interesting point that where we're at right now, because it's easy to kind of just like dismiss somebody, or it's easy to kind of like blame somebody for something. But what's harder to do is kind of like taking responsibility for not only like what I say and what I do, but also how I feel in response.
Yes, Angel.
Right? Like I don't. So it's you know, I don't have to get enraged, but I am enraged. So why am I enraged? And then start to like figure that out. And you know, I don't know. Just when you and David were going back and forth, I was thinking about that, and I was like, maybe that could be a social exercise.
I get enraged quickly as fuck right now. Nowadays, it's like.
But it's also like you got to figure out why. I mean, you don't have to, but like, why do you get enraged? And what
you should. You should figure out why. Well, should. I think you're a better person if you sit down and you figure out why you're so enraged, I think. And I mean, that's such a good point, Angel. I mean, like, I you know, one of the things I try to always espouse is the idea that the only variable in life that you can control is yourself. Okay, you can't control anything else. You are the only variable you can control. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions to that. I mean, if you get a brain aneurysm and die, you can't control that. But for the most part, you can control yourself, okay? And so when something upsets you, okay, when something bothers you, I do think you have a responsibility to try to take ownership over that feeling and understand why you're feeling that way. Do you know, like, too frequently, like you said, Angel, and it's so, so true, it's other people's faults. It's not my fault I feel this way. You've made me feel this way. It's like, well, what? I just said hello. I just asked how you were doing. What the fuck are you talking about? I didn't even know. I didn't know that hello was a curse in your culture. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, like you can't just blame me because I'm an easy target, right? And I think that we have grown up, all of us, right, in our sort of age range, have grown up in a world where responsibility for how we feel has not always been taught. You know, ownership, agency, those things are not as strong in our generation as they were in generations past. You know, we don't have that. We don't have the same sort of great cause. You know, World War, Vietnam, like, yes, you know, we have Black Lives Matter, but even that, I mean, it's fragmented. There's no central leadership. There's no central goal. There's no sort of, everyone's not sort of, we're sort of striving for what? Equality, or, you know, what does that even mean? We're striving for acceptance. Like, what does that even mean and look like, right? Materially, okay? Don't give me, we're built on ideals now. We live our lives by ideals, and ideals are great, but they're ideals. They're not practical. They're not meant to be practical. They're meant to sort of give us something to strive for. Okay, but to envision that we live in an idealistic society, I think is naive. And I think we're taught that. I know I was. Okay, and I know for a long time, I was like an angry person. And I always sort of like thought it was everyone else's fault, my parents' fault, my brother's fault, whatever. And really, it's just my fault because I allow myself to let anger consume me instead of sort of analyzing where that anger is coming from and taking control over it.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. So maybe
it's really good point.
Yeah, maybe as a social experiment, like next time any of us or any of our listeners get upset, agitated, and enraged, as David
I'll text you guys in about 10 minutes.
David, keep an anger journal. Keep an anger journal.
Dude, man.
How many? One for the month?
That's it. No. What? Yeah, that's a good idea.
No, I was joking and saying if he gets so angry, he'll run out of journals. He'll have to keep writing.
The thing with being mad and enraged, it's like I'm very good, I think, at analyzing like why I'm enraged. Like I see something, I'm like, this is fucking pissing me off, but this is why. For example, whatever our president is fucking saying, whatever Trump is saying, enrages the fuck out of me. And with my morals and with my understanding of the greater good and things like that, I have, in my opinion, every right and every reason to get mad at this fucking asshole. Raisin in the sun. See, when I get enraged, I can't even talk. But
that's why you should control your rage, David.
And your raisins.
Yeah, and that is important though. Like I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you get to that point, but it's because for whatever reason, I'm sure there's a science behind being enraged and being angry, or any sort of emotion extreme. It's difficult to communicate. Like it breaks it down for whatever reason. It's very difficult. Like it's difficult to form words. You start saying raisin when you meant reason, right?
Yeah, you're in fight or flight.
Right, and we need to be able to understand that and then control it, right? Because at those extremes is probably when we need to speak clearly or communicate clearly the most.
Well, that's when people die.
And it's an exercise. It's an exercise that if you don't utilize, you will just freeze up and you won't know how to get out of the situation. And it could cost you your life or your friend's life or, a whole bunch of others.
Well, it cost my brother. I mean, my brother was killed maybe a week or two ago.
Oh,
because he got man. It's okay.
Wait, I
didn't know that.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was shot and killed maybe 8 days ago, something like that.
I'm sorry, dude.
9 days ago. Fuck. Look, it happens, obviously. It happens. And I bring it up because it's relevant to our conversation where he got into an argument with someone and neither of them were sort of able to dissipate the anger and frustration that they were feeling, right? And I'm sure both of them would have said that they were right at the time. And I think that's something that, again, we aren't taught. We're not taught to disagree with one another. We're taught to avoid disagreement at all costs, right? You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics, right? Why? It's a stupid rule. It's you don't talk about that because, you might lose your cool. You might say something you don't mean, as if that's okay. That's cool. There are topics out there in which you can get so enraged that you're going to say something that you don't mean and ruin a relationship. Well, why don't we talk about the fact that exists? Why don't we talk about the fact that you can't have a conversation about a topic that you're sensitive about without taking it personally? And why don't we do something about that? Because you shouldn't be walking around not talking about arguably the two most important topics in our lives because you're afraid to disagree.
Yeah.
Because if you disagree, you're going to fight. learn how to disagree. Like, we need to learn how to disagree, and we don't. We're not taught.
It's tough.
Tough.
It's like saying, disagree with the racist, and then just let it be.
But
that's
racist,
like an extreme example.
No, but I think it's a perfect example, David, because as much as we hate, as much as we disagree with racists, as much as we think of racism as being abhorrent and a terrible sort of thing, and it is, like, those people exist. They have points of view, and at the end of the day, they want the same exact things that we do.
Yeah.
And if we can't sort of learn, right? And it's, again, it sounds crazy, and I think this is where we get caught up. It's like, they're racist. Like, why should I have to talk to them or agree with? Like, why should I have any sort of dialogue with a racist? Like, well, because they're your fucking neighbor, and you're all gonna get a water bill, and you're all gonna have to pay it, and you're all gonna have to, like, live in a community with one another and exist. And if you don't, then you might as well just get a gun or go on the street and just, like, kill one another and see who comes out alive. And that's the direction we're headed. We're headed towards a fucking civil war because, like, we don't want to sit down and talk. We're just like, well, fuck you, your ideas are wrong. And they're like, well, fuck you, your ideas are wrong. And it's like, well, okay, well, look, why don't we both just agree we have different views about life, like, we completely disagree here, but, like, at the end of the day, we both want a job, we both want an income, we both want health, right? We want our kids to have a better lives than what we've had. Like, there's so many more things I guarantee that racists and the people that they hate would agree on than that they would disagree on. And that's what's so fucked up.
Yeah. Yep. But we can't even agree to disagree like you just put. Like, that's too much, right? So that's the problem. And I think that we're seeing the ramifications of it currently. And we'll see where this ends up going.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So let's wrap this up. Let's try to put a cap on it. I think I think everybody here, we didn't know that, you lost your brother, so we're all sorry to hear that news.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if there's anything you need us to do or, whatever in order to honor
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. It just was so relevant to what we were talking about. I felt like it, to bring it up, but my brother was a troubled guy, so it's a call I pretty much expected for a long time.
Wow. So either way, we're still saddened to hear that.
Thank you.
Piggyback on what Angel said, let us know if there's anything else we can do. But again, on a light note, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Again, dropping a ton of really insightful thoughts and theories, especially on like the eating and all of it included. But I'm sure we'd be happy to have you on in future as well. We don't know what future fitness holds, but always good to kind of pick your brain and for our listeners to kind of hear your thoughts on both sides of the exercising and the nutrition. So
I'd be happy to come back on again. I mean, this is
nice.
Great. It's great to see you guys and talk to you guys.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd say I'd miss hearing his voice. That's crazy. Now I'll be on Spotify.
I have to agree. No, I definitely miss. Yeah, that's something that, man, when I think about, like, one of the main reasons I stayed at Equinox is my colleagues.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's been
my clients and my colleagues, and like I
That's
definitely miss the camaraderie for sure.
I know. We
I'm flying though. I'm almost coming up on my 10-year anniversary at Equinox. It's insane.
Jesus Christ,
Crazy.
They just hired to like I don't know why, to mop the floor or something when he first got
That's
there.
right. Just
Why
got him
do
in
you
there.
think I was hired to mop the floors?
He was coming after
It's the
you.
beard. It's the beard, David.
That's why you thought I was going to mop the floors. Okay.
No, don't even
Okay.
twist. Don't even twist that.
I didn't twist anything. You said it.
No.
Because it's off the books labor, David.
That's what I was trying to imply.
No taxes.
No time. That's right. I'll take it.
I didn't afford this computer right now.
Fuck that.
I'll stop before I go ahead. All right. Well, thank you, Antoine. Appreciate it, man.
Where can
Thank you, guys.
people like learn more about what you do or like training with you or anything like that? Is there any website?
You know, I'm going to get back on social media at some point. I haven't.
And it was like, come see me. That's how you find out. Come see me.
Yeah, honestly, you got to email me. No, you know, my wife, several clients have told me, yeah, I should get on social media. So I'm probably gonna do something. If you guys have any good ideas or tips, I'm, I'll happily.
Get on MySpace, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah, MySpace. Yeah, no, I'm not that fucking old and stupid, David. Jesus. MySpace. Does it even exist anymore? It must.
It exists. I think they use it more for like music stuff, like artists.
No.
It's weird. It's slow as fuck. I was on it like a couple months ago because I was bored. I'm like, this is taking so long.
He was on MySpace. Can we take note of the fact that David just said he was on MySpace? You need to get out of the house.
Listen,
We wonder why he gets enraged so quickly.
Exactly. No wonder.
Savage.
But reach out to me about that bike, David.
Well, yeah, we'll chat.
Definitely borrow it.
All right,
Awesome.
thanks, Antoine.
Thank you,
All right,
man.
guys.
Appreciate
This
it.
was great.
Take it
Awesome. Thanks for
Be
having
safe,
me.
man.
Thanks.
You got it.
Bye.
You
See you,
too.
man.
See you guys.
Cool.
That's awesome. That was episode 18 with Antoine Simmons, and that was awesome. He
Hope
dropped
you
so
guys are
much
still
insights.
listening. I know it's been
It's been a long old one.
3
Yeah,
minutes.
That was a good episode.
that was a good chunk.
I enjoyed it.
Now Jacques got to go to the bathroom because he can't hold it in. So
Dude, I've been trying to.
I didn't realize the time. It's been like holy
an hour
shit.
43. Yeah,
Wow.
it's probably
Okay,
our
so
longest episode.
let's wrap
it up?
Pause it for a bit. Okay, yeah. You wanna wrap it up? Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up
Okay.
for our listeners.
right.
So thanks guys for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple,
everything.
yeah, everything. Follow us
Google
on
it.
Instagram, the trainer feed. We got Alfie joining in,
Oh,
Alfie
God.
making his appearance. He's hungry. He's
Cameo.
always hungry. So yeah, thanks guys for tuning in, and we all look forward to hearing. I don't know, but see you next week.
All right, deuces.
See you guys.